This is a full story. Kitten wishes you all a happy and enjoyable story. My name is Rocky. I have a little green plum named Hailey who was picked up by my mom. This man was inhuman, good-looking and studious, warm and sweet. But no matter how much the others were mesmerized by him, I knew that this sister was anything but harmless and good at school. My sister was picked up by my mom. He was led through the door by my mom when he was 4 years old, not letting an adult touch a single thing in his backpack with a panicked stare. My sister-in-law advised my mom that the child was too old to be led when he knew better. My mom said, "What can be done?" Her best friend died in an unknown manner. Did not even leave a word. People are gone. So the girl who was picked up is my mom's best friend's child. This child is also poor. When we went to her home, she was locked up alone in the house to eat cold bread for 3 days. Her face was so dirty that she couldn't see her face, and the crotch of her pants was all knotted up in front of her, wet and dry, dry and wet, so she hadn't suffered much. After Hailey was brought home and cleaned up, my mom immediately marveled at how in the world there could be such a beautiful child. This is a real find. It's a great honor to have such a beautiful boy as a son-in-law or as a daughter. However, my mom didn't know what kind of abyss was hidden behind this beautiful skin. When I was in elementary school, I found out something completely opposite to what I knew. My sister, Hailey, was perfect in the eyes of everyone. She was incredibly good-looking, and when she was a little girl, she could not walk down the street without getting a bunch of boys to look at her. She is warm and sweet. We'll take the initiative to help mom to do housework, from where he picked up a massage science book to learn a few times, and every day to my mom's shoulders and back. Her IQ is so high that it's scary. I don't see her studying hard, but she's always number one in her class, especially polite. Every time she sees the neighbors' uncles and aunts, she takes the initiative to call people. And when her mother misses a call, she takes a small sticker and writes down the caller's information clearly and waits for her mother to come home to deal with it. Handle things with maturity and indifference beyond the age. Never rely on their own beauty and deceive the feelings of little girls. A bunch of love letters in the drawer were burned in front of the whole family, and there was no need for adults to worry about their early love. The most amazing thing is that from the first day she arrived at our house, Hailey asked my mom to teach her how to read. My mom had never seen such a motivated and eager child, so she taught her like crazy with enthusiasm. Hailey was so gifted and had such a strong memory that by the age of 5, she was already able to do some regular basic reading on her own. My mom said that every time she had a parent-teacher conference, she felt like she had a split personality. In my sister Hailey's class, it was the successful people giving advice. In my class, it was a parade of negative material. Although I have no talent for learning, I think I'm much better at recognizing the good guys and the bad guys than those who only look at the surface. Regardless of how other people were mesmerized by my sister, I knew that my sister was not a harmless person with a good character. I have proof, or rather, I had. When I was a child, I got up one night to go to the bathroom, and when I turned over, I realized that there was light under my sister's blanket. When she saw me get up suddenly, she turned off the flashlight and tried to put something away in a panic. Who knew that something metallic fell to the ground in the darkness with a crunch? It landed right next to my feet, glinting coldly in the moonlight. I was stunned at first and tried to bend down to pick it up, but was pulled back by my sister on the top bunk. She warned me grimly, "Don't tell mom and dad, or I'll put you in a sack and throw you in the garbage dump." When I was a kid, because of my dark skin, I was taller and thinner than my peers, plus I couldn't learn anything, and I was always at the bottom of the exams. So I acted as a child. So I acted as the king of the kids, and I played with knives a lot. So what is that cold light? I naturally know better than she herself. A white rabbit with good grades would hide a knife at her bedside? Would a good student with no dark side in her heart play with knives when the whole family was asleep? If she didn't play with it, did the knife come down in the middle of the night on its own legs? I don't believe it, and neither does the knife. Anyway, a clear logic is that if she doesn't have a ghost in her heart, why did she threaten me? She must be hiding something shameful. During the school year, I always got horrible warnings from my parents after I broke someone's head, but I don't think all those warnings added up to as much as Hailey's one. My mom and dad were just trying to get me to behave through verbal intimidation. My sister, on the other hand, I think she's the kind of person who can really talk the talk and walk the walk. Seeing my face pale with fear, Hailey suddenly sighed and asked me to come over, and just as I stood up and wondered what the hell it meant to come over, Hailey suddenly put something cool around my neck. "What?" I yelped. Hailey gave me a hush. "Keep your voice down. It's a jade tablet to keep you safe. Don't take it off at any time." Haha, too funny, right? The person who just threatened to put me in a sack and throw me in the garbage dump gave me a jade tablet to keep me safe? I thank you. As long as you don't lay a deadly hand on me, then I'll definitely be safe and sound. Her uncertainty and joyfulness, her unconditional good behavior in front of adults, and her loneliness when she's at school. school. Her unconditional good behavior in front of adults and her solitary ways at school made every smile she gave me a kind of remoteness and wickedness that only the people involved understood. I secretly feared her and secretly hated her, because ever since she came to my house, my dad and my mom have never stopped fighting. Because Hailey's mother was known as the bitch of the neighborhood. She had been a princess in a KTV for half her life, but when she accidentally had Hailey with someone, she thought she had saved up her whole life and had to have something to fall back on, so she gave birth to her. My mom was the chief writer of the magazine's factual section, and she had long heard that her elementary school classmate Hailey's mother was engaged in a special industry, so she squirmed and explained her intentions to her. I did not expect Hailey's mother as a quick person. The two agreed to a fee. They will be their own red wine and green history of love to my mom to listen to one by one. My mother listened more and more sad, and even with Hailey's mother resonated. See her alone with a child's strange heart, every now and then wrapped dumplings wonton to send her over. The closer they got, the more my dad got twisted in his mind for some reason. My mom has been married to her for more than 2 years and has yet to have a child, so my dad is even picking on her and arguing with her. It wasn't until Hailey's mother hung herself from the living room chandelier and my mom brought home a dirty 4-year-old Hailey that my dad hit my mom for the first time. In his words, it was my mom who hit his bottom. What do you want? That piece of shit didn't leave a dime for the bastard. How are you gonna raise him? You want to take my money to raise someone else's daughter? Don't even think about it. My dad went through Hailey's mother's belongings and couldn't find a penny, so he flipped out on the spot. The only thing my dad didn't notice was that Hailey had a dirty SpongeBob SquarePants backpack on her when she arrived. Only, Hailey wouldn't let the adults touch anything in her backpack, and she looked at them with a fierce gaze. Mom and dad thought it must be full of broken toys that kids like, so they didn't give her a hard time. My mom told her to put down her backpack and wash her hands and come over to eat, but she didn't move, so my mom went to help her and she screamed and bit my mom's wrist. My dad wanted to whip her with a belt, but my mom stopped her with tears in her eyes. Forget about it. Since we want to not get it, just treat this child as our own daughter, and she happens to be from your hometown. You think about it as not God's will? Hailey was born in Taipei, and my father was born in Taipei. As soon as my dad heard what was going on here, he went out for a smoke without saying a word. He resigned himself to his fate unwillingly. For a long time after that, my dad was discussing with my mom, where did Hailey's mother's money go? Why did she suddenly hang herself? Did she hang herself because she was cheated out of her money? It's not like she killed herself. She should have had time to prepare for her death, right? Shouldn't she at least have a will before she died? Not to mention leaving a 4-year-old child behind. Can you really do that? Anyway, my dad didn't believe in it. He was mainly unwilling to help raise a child for no reason without getting a penny. For a long time, it was hard for my dad to accept that he had a daughter for nothing. Most men care about their blood, and the more he had nothing of his own, the more he cared. In addition, Hailey's temperament seems to be extremely odd to my father, and she can do no wrong in her life and studies, but she is unusually cold to my father. Hailey will call my mom, my dad, him, you, or simply use language skills to avoid, not called. They fought until the next year, when my mom gave birth to me and named me Rocky. After that, my dad was in a good mood for a while. In addition to buying cigarettes and alcohol for himself, and occasionally brought me back some jelly, lollipops, and the like. He only bought one at a time, no Hailey's. So, at that time, I felt that there was nothing wrong with mom and dad adopting such a sister home. At least, he made me understand what the favoritism of a biological son should be. Whenever Hailey was at this time, she would not even raise her head, but would frantically do math in her notebook with one pen. In order to stimulate Hailey, I would go to sit in front of her with a lollipop in my mouth and lick it. Strangely enough, she would neither crave it nor grab it. She would also take out the little puddings she traded her reward book for with her classmates from her school bag and stuff them into my pocket, smiling at me quietly and dotingly. Hey, she's not even jealous of me, and she's learned to return the favor at a young age. I'm so sick of nice kids without a dark side. It just makes me even more useless than I am. It's horrible, and it must be one small step in the long-term plan she's using to corrupt me. I'd purposely rip open the jelly skin in front of Hailey, letting the juices spill out onto Hailey's homework notebook, at which point Hailey would stop counting and put her hands on her chin in peace. Hailey would stop doing her math, rest her chin on her hands, and stare at me with a quiet, deadpan stare, until that familiar cold light flashed in her eyes again, and then I would put away my villainous thoughts and give her a blank stare and exit. Unfortunately, the calm and little fun of ergotism didn't last too long before my home fell apart. In the summer vacation of my freshman year, my dad took the unprecedented step of having a quiet hot pot dinner with with our family without cursing or going crazy because of the alcohol he had consumed. He also unprecedentedly patted me on the shoulder and stuffed $500 into my hand. The next day, my mom packed a few big bags and called a small noodle to pull them away on the pretext of taking my sister and me on a trip. Of course, I knew it wasn't a trip. I wasn't a 3 to 5-year-old kid anymore. The jingle jangle was more like running away. Hailey saw me frozen by the van and didn't say anything, so she dragged me downstairs to the convenience store to buy 2 bottles of Fanta. Your dad's got someone on the outside, and after they divorced, our mom was swept off her feet. Rocky, look, when your dad talks to me, it's always our mom and your dad. Mom and dad got divorced because of you, the unwanted wild child. I scarlet my eyes and put the blame on Hailey. Hailey smiled coldly and said, "Do you think you're wanted? Your father favors you so much, but didn't he want you too?" I have long been accustomed to him, this vice of everything high and mighty virtues. Red eyes with Fanta rinsed mouth, grunt 2 mouths, then take with frothy Fanta sprayed all over her, and then a person into the back seat of the van, silently waiting for this smoke as soon as possible to end. I don't understand why my mom doesn't fight for anything but custody of the 2 of us. Usually adults divorce are not 2 children a person to share a well. I'd rather she gave me up in exchange for some money, change a house to land, than she ding 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 all alone dragging the 2 of us through the hard life better. In fact, my father at first also hypocritically asked her, or Rocky with me forget, you a person with 2, remarriage is not convenient. At that time, my mom shouted like a madman, I can't possibly remarry. I just want Hailey and Rocky to be together forever. My mom used to cover her mouth and keep her voice down when she fought with my dad, but that was the only time. She was so emotional that Hailey, who was mopping the floor, and I, who was playing a game in the house, stopped moving at the same time and looked at each other. She looked at each other steadily, and then I vomited on Hailey, and Hailey continued to mop the floor with a red face to ease the embarrassment of suddenly being formed into an object. My mom is so weird. Shouldn't she have said, I just want to be with Hailey and Rocky forever? Why did she say, I just want to be with Hailey and Rocky forever? It was a weird slip of the tongue to say it at the top of your lungs to the people involved. That night, my mom took Hailey and me to live in an old house of my great-aunts, who charged my mom some nominal rent. We're all family. If I don't charge you some, you'll be living insecurely instead. Aunt Face Rich, twisting the fat waist to help my mom take a few trips things, words in the most considerate and kind. The cousin, who was as tall as she was, followed her every step of the way, coming in and going out and coming in, empty-handed, like an unweaned brat. After all these years, my cousin was still the same stupid badass who had to play nice in front of the family. The only time I was ever beaten by my mom was because of this beastly cousin. That year, my cousin was caught stealing money from the teacher at school and begged the teacher on her knees not to tell her parents, saying that she would bring the money back tomorrow to return it to the teacher, and she cried and 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 cried. She cried and naive and pitiful, that the reformed grandchildren looked so that the teacher's heart softened, promised her the next time not to make an exception. But my cousin could not afford to take out that money and had asked her to buy a Sony Walkman. So that night, she begged my sister-in-law to come to my house, saying that she wanted Rocky to miss my mom. My cousin and my father are the same. They don't recognize Hailey as a member of my family. Hailey also do not want to see her. No cousin to come, just hold a basketball to go down to play basketball, out of sight, out of mind. Hailey does not want to argue with her cousin in front of her mother to make her mother down. That day, my aunt and my mom went to the market to buy food. I brought back my mom let me buy duck necks from the school gate, a door, found the door is covered, and then I was able to get to the door, Tiptoeing in, I noticed at a glance that the door to my mom's house was open. I grabbed the broom at the door and decisively pushed the door in, just in time to see my cousin stuffing something into her pants pocket. My mom's jewelry box was open. Take it out. I recognized at once that my cousin's hands were not clean. Take what? When she saw it was me, she relaxed at once and dared to be not slow and cunning. I went up to take back, but was fat and strong cousin kicked over to the ground, followed by a rounded big ear thunderbolt called up, then gave me call confused. In vain, I take the big sister as a self-proclaimed to go out everywhere to cause trouble, but it turns out that in front of the male-female disparity of strength, I simply cannot even a dead fat unweaned can't beat. You shut your mouth a little bit. If you give me to say out, I will tell your father with other women's thing to your mom. My neck is cold. The whole person immediately stunned. This animal said is true or not? How did she know about my dad's affair? I thought Hailey and I were the only ones who knew. Actually, everyone in the world knows about my dad's affairs, including my mom, but I always thought that if people didn't talk to my mom about it, then she wouldn't know about it. This bad boy knows how to get the best of me. I know that even though I look like a big-headed and fierce fearless person. In fact, my heart is most afraid of my mom getting hurt. Cousin's sister, while I am obsessed with the work, a hood down my neck on the jade plate, smilingly scrutinize up. This is worth money? This is a real one or a fake one? I instinctively want to go back, but was this flexible fat man flashed back to avoid, but also backhanded, just tumbling to the hand of the gold chain into my hand. At that moment, the door opened, and my cousin falsely accused me in public while I was dumbfounded. She said that I stole to get my sister-in-law's gold chain, was caught by her in public. She pulled me to prevent me from leaving. I broke free and hit the corner of the table. She didn't even have to think about it to use this kind of accusation. She didn't even have to think twice about rounding up the bruises on my face from her blows in such a comical way. That's a joke. Would I steal from my own mother? That's the kind of bad seed with a big brain that makes up things with more holes in it than brains. But when my sister-in-law saw this scene, her first reaction was to rush over to her baby daughter's body and head and pull. She was afraid that her daughter had suffered. I was enraged by the selfishness of these two women and cursed them as pigs with no human heart. My mom took a look at the injury on my face and immediately knew that it couldn't have been a bruise from hitting the corner of the table, but she still kicked me in the ass. Just now my cousin hit me. I did not say a word, but also thought about how to prima donna to find the opportunity to fight back. But my mom gave me a kick and I cried out instantly, still sitting on the floor, howling like a wolf cub. That's when Hailey came back. She was first shocked by the scene. Then she looked round at all the suspects who'd made me cry with scarlet eyes. Then with a cold face, she pulled me up off the ground and carried me on her back for a long walk around the neighborhood. Hailey said that mom hit me, not because she didn't believe me, but because I shouldn't have brought my great aunt along to yell at me. When Hailey and I were young, my mom didn't want to lose her job or her kids, and she didn't have the money to hire a nanny, so she had to ask my sister-in-law to help her when she was too busy to take care of the kids. In my mom's opinion, my sister-in-law is more conscientious than my dad, or more useful, and she feels she owes her sister-in-law. I don't want to hear all this. I only recognize that my mom has done this with me. That day, I wiped my tears and snot all over her shirt, and the ever-clean Hailey didn't give a damn, and even bought me a bunch of lollipops with her allowance. When I received the lollipops, I noticed that she had tears in her eyes. I wondered why she was crying when she wasn't the one who got beaten up. But what made me wonder even more was that after I was bullied that time, my cousin didn't come to my house for a long time, and every time my great aunt came over, she didn't bring her with her. One time I heard my sister-in-law sitting on the sofa, crying and complaining to my mom. She said that her baby daughter was hit by a basketball at school and her eye socket was congested and the swelling had just gone down, and then a few days later she was hit again by a basketball from nowhere. My sister-in-law went to the school to make a fuss, but the school gave the conclusion that it was careless, and the student who missed apologized. Moreover, because each time it was a different student in a different place, those students who hit her and cousin do not know. Say conspiracy, logic does not fit. If you say it was accidental, but the cousin's eye socket basically had to be hit every now and then. Cousin had a long period of time, are staring at a pair of black swollen eye blisters sneaky, holding pig head walking. Hey, retribution comes so fast, it's like a tornado. After the stuff was moved, I rubbed my eyes and went to my room for a lunch break. My great aunt and mom acted like it was a normal family gathering, not showing an ounce of sadness and working together in unison to cook a huge meal together that, laughing loudly and cheerfully, the atmosphere was as joyous as a housewarming. I even suspected that my mom didn't love my dad, and that was just fine. Hailey was doing the dishes and mopping the floors, always on track to be a good boy, no matter what time of day it was. After a while, my great aunt and mom were going downstairs for a walk and asked me if I wanted to join them, but I waved my hand and decisively declined this entertainment, which is a particular favorite of middle-aged and older women. Hearing waves of doors slamming, I thought people were gone, so I recklessly lay on the bed and swiped my cell phone, when suddenly a brown bear-like tall shadow flashed into the room. I sat up straight with a jolt of fear and fixed my eyes. It was this bad seed cousin again. He has been quiet for a while. See, I am the only one left in the house. The bad water in the stomach cannot hold it again. What are you doing here? I lowered my voice and glared at her. Why are you whispering? Andy and my mom went downstairs to walk in the park. Hailey went downstairs with a garbage bag, and there's no one left in the house except for the two of us. A perverted and villainous, lecherous smile appeared on my cousin's fat face again. What are you doing? I shrank back, and my hand was already groping for the pillow, ready to find a weapon to take advantage of. I heard from your mom that you got a scholarship this year. Lend me some. My cousin is in a tight spot lately. Get lost. Cousin ripped me off the bed and slapped me in the face, screaming, "Give it to me. Hurry up." I have long heard my mom say cousin died online gambling, but also borrowed online loans. But I have absolutely no idea he can for my hands of these these few small money crazy like this. Totally disregarded how to end up like this when my mom and the others came back later and beat me up like this. Seeing that I have no intention of giving in, my cousin grabbed the lamp on my nightstand and was about to smash it down on my head. Just as I instinctively put my hands to protect the top of my head, the behemoth in front of me suddenly fell to the ground in response. Hailey swept me into her arms and rested her forehead against mine, stroking my back over and over again, tears in her eyes. That cold, slow touch of her fingertips felt like a poisonous tongue snaking along her spine. I saw her dragging my cousin out of my room like a dead pig and using a sack to put the person in and tie up the mouth. The whole thing backfired and became even more afraid than it was just a moment ago. She really knows how to put people in sacks? My God, she really did more than just terrorize me back then. Hailey, did you kill someone? I asked her cautiously. Hailey washed her hands and snapped back in front of me, her eyes glaring at me. Called sister. That day, as soon as my great aunt came back, she found her cousin ghostly crying in the sack bag. As soon as she untied the sack bag, my cousin cried her eyes out. She didn't know how it happened, but once she saw that Hailey and I weren't home and that her daughter was alone in the sack bag, squealing like a pig, she could guess who did it. My mom kept apologizing. My cousin touched the back of her head and howled, "Mom, pain, headache." My sister-in-law was so distressed that she took my cousin's big fat head into her arms and cried out in a mournful voice, "My poor child, we kindly lent the house to someone else, but they didn't appreciate it. We lent them our house, but they don't appreciate it. They beat us instead. Is there any justice?" My mom called Hailey and me a few times, but we couldn't get through. She poured a glass of water for them. "My good daughter, tell me why Hailey and Rocky beat you up." My mom, although a few years ago in order to take care of the two of us, eventually quit her job as a full-time housewife for some years. But she, at least at first, is to eat the pencil meal. The brain is still smart. She certainly know. Cousin will not be beaten so badly for no reason. But who cares about these rights and wrongs? Great aunt. Her precious daughter was beaten to a pig's head by Hailey. No matter what the reason is, she will not feel that it is her daughter's fault. My mom, are you talking like a human being? I told you not to bring this bastard home, but you didn't listen, and now that you've brought him home, your husband has been killed by Hailey and my baby girl has been hurt. Now you've brought him back, not to mention losing your husband to Hailey, but also hurting my baby girl. If you don't clear up this mess, you should move out of my house as soon as possible. My mom's neck was cold. She couldn't imagine that such cold and heartless words could come from her own sister's mouth. "Sister, I have 2 children with me, and I don't know where to go. Then when I find a house, I will move out in the morning." My mom was so scared. She had worked hard all day for this messy move, and if she were to move out now, she wouldn't know how to talk to her 2 kids. She didn't know how she was going to explain it to her 2 kids, and her strength and energy wouldn't allow it. I yelled at Hailey, "Hailey, you got into trouble and you dragged me out. What are you going to make my mom do?" Hailey pulled me into a real estate development project. A person from the promotional table to pull out the brochure left to see, right to see, and then ran to the sandbox that a period of examination. The sales girl saw her face young. A look is still a student, then not chicken blood like to sell to her, but cleverly organized a sexy big V-neck, sweet and greasy, holding up a cell phone to hand up. "Hey, every time I go out with Hailey, I will inevitably meet a girl who wants to add her WeChat." Hailey uncharacteristically did not stall away, but did not hesitate to add the sales lady, and even handed out a bright and sunny smile. The lady's eyes were almost glued to Hailey's tight skirt. When Hailey heard me call out to her, she stopped flirting with the girl and lightly wandered over to my side. She took the booklet in her hand and flipped it haphazardly twice, and said without lifting her head, "Why are you screaming so loudly? Jealous?" When I heard this, I almost died on the spot. "Me? Jealous? What are you talking about? You are my sister. Now recognize me as your sister? What are you so proud of? You're just a name. So there's nothing wrong with you being jealous of me, right?" I went down on the spot with Hailey's set of words after another, and I took my fingers and rubbed my temples, forcing myself to calm down. "Hailey, let's just go back. Great Aunt is already a difficult person to deal with, and now we're still in the wrong place. We are not children anymore, not to help solve the problem, but also to run out for so long. Mom alone cannot cope with it." Hailey slowly looked at me. Her pretty face slipped through a trace of contempt and indifferent smile. "Yo, Rocky when really have wisdom? No for Mom to consider. When it was who in the school all day fighting and killing caused Mom time, and again to go to school to make amends to people to apologize to it? Heh, you're not going to say a word about me. What kind of hero is that? If you won't come back, I will. Someone has to solve the problem." I grumbled and tried to get up. Hailey pulled me back and said slowly, "Do you really know what it means to solve a problem?" Hailey, the devil, pressed the doorbell himself and pushed me in. At this point, sat my mom comrade in order to create a sad atmosphere, even did not turn on the lights. My mom turned her head in the direction direction of the door and faintly said, "Come on, you two talk about it piece by piece." "It's okay, Mom. I just see my cousin's bastard owes a beating." Hailey saw that she was also exposed, so she slowly moved herself to my side and took the lead before I opened my mouth to give me such an absurd reason to block back. When I looked at Hailey with a surprised look on my face, she added indifferently that she had rummaged through my house. My mom nodded convincingly and gently comforted, "Rocky, this mom understands, but you can't hit so hard. The head of the boss a bag. After all, he is my own sister's only son. Besides, we are now the situation is not also special." My mom, while pacifying, while looking at the strange surrounding, eyes laxly spread out, nose a sour, turned his head to the side. This scene made me finally realize that my mother did not leave her marriage unharmed. She was ultimately sad. When my mom saw that we were both silent, she pointed to that one room with her chin and said, "Go to bed." I obediently pushed open the door, only to be surprised to find that my mom. "This room is set up with 2 double beds." I skeptically twisted my head, conspiratorial revolt. "Mom, how to sleep in this house? You go too." My mom gestured toward Hailey, whacked her neck, and got up to go to her house. "Mom, it's not right. We're both older. I'm a freshman. My sister's in grad school, and we're still sleeping in the same room." I was so excited that my voice went out of tune, like a duck with a stiff upper lip being gripped by a merciless human. My mom turned her head and was about to have a fit when Hailey immediately pushed my shoulder and went into the house. "It's not like she hasn't slept before, so what's the point of screaming?" Hailey unlocked the door, long sleeves off, said lightly, "When I was a child, I slept in a bunk bed because I was forced to do so." I refuted with all my might. Hailey raised his eyebrows and looked at me, the corner of his mouth a bad smile. "Now is not also forced by the conditions. I mean, even if the temporary transition room is not enough, I can still make do with my mom to sleep. The 2 of us together in a room, there are always many inconveniences." "I don't mind. You go ahead." I gave Hailey a blank look, holding the quilt on the bed by the window to go to my mom's house. But when I got to the door, I braked. My mom's so toxic, I was forced to ask to sleep in a separate room from her when I was 3 years old. I told her I was scared, and she was like, "Sister will protect you. Go ahead." She always resented me for poking my feet into her stomach at night. She always slept poorly, lost a lot of hair. If there is any movement, she will wake up at any time. And when she wakes up and goes back to sleep, it's very difficult to sleep. And if she doesn't sleep well the first night, she will be very angry the next day. The next day, her temper is so high that she can't find my dad to fight with, so she takes it out on me, who is full of holes. My perfectionist sister, Hailey, always smiled without saying a word in the middle of the battle, and never said a word to help me plead for mercy. Hey, what a life I've had. Yoo-hoo, what's back? Boys clean themselves up so goddamn fast. What a strange species. In the time it took me to walk back and forth with the comforter, Hailey had brushed her teeth and washed her face, and was already lying under the comforter sarcastically. "What do you care? This isn't your house or mine anyway. Everyone mind their own business." I gouged her out fiercely and threw the quilt on Hailey's bed in a bad mood. "What do you mean? Sleeping with my sister?" Hailey was shocked by my move and was still pretending to be calm. "You go away. I want this bed by the window." After I put down the quilt, I put my hands in an evasive gesture, like forcing a duck to jump into a pond. Hailey snorts a laugh. "Why should I? This bed I have slept hot before you come to change it on purpose?" Now I'm red-faced. I used to do this when I was a kid. Hailey is fast at washing up, and once she's done, I'll ask her to warm up the comforter for me, and when it's hot, I'll send her back to the top bunk. Hailey would flick me in the head or tug on my ponytail and roll back to her bunk. "What are you doing? You're blushing like a monkey's ass." She saw me freeze and deliberately provoked me. "Why did you lie to mom just now? I'm obviously the victim. Is it embarrassing to tell?" I finally found a breakthrough to turn the situation around. Hailey pondered for a moment and said, "Then do you think my mom is ashamed?" Hailey saw that I couldn't respond for a moment, so she further emphasized, "I mean, the mom who gave birth to me." My neck was cold, the muscles in my body were tense, the hairs in my ears stood up distinctly. Hailey never mentioned her own biological mom to me since she was a child. Although my mom never hid the fact that she wasn't real from anyone, Hailey knew it since she was a kid, and I knew it too, but she always kept her mouth shut about it. If a relative with a light mouth joked about it at the dinner table, Hailey would say, "Hailey, do you want to know about your real mother?" Hailey would quickly eat her bowl of rice and go to her room without saying a word. I think she really wanted to curse, but her perfectionist self would not allow her to lose her manners in front of her mom. At this time, my mom would change her face, slam down her chopsticks, pull a long face, and say without hesitation, "If you want to eat, eat well, and if you don't know how to speak, you can leave it alone." Relatives' face embarrassed quickly eased the atmosphere. Joking, just kidding. Nevertheless, in a few days, there will be news that the relative fell to the hip bone and could not get out of bed. So So, I always think that underneath Hailey's perfect skin, there must be some evil superpower hidden. Just like that jade tablet that was taken by my cousin when I was a child. It returned to the bottom of my pillow one night for no reason, and my cousin was also inexplicably swollen in the eye socket by various basketballs in her turn at school. It's so evil. The mere fact of hating anyone can bring down anyone for no reason. And at the moment, it was precisely such a taboo subject that Hailey initiated to me. I didn't know how to answer, afraid that if I answered wrongly, I would plainly suffer from Hailey's curse that this guy has as God's help. That's different. I still don't think it's fair for Hailey to put me on the spot about being abused by my cousin and her real mom being in a special trade. And with Hailey's intelligence, of course she knows what I'm thinking. You're thinking you're more innocent than that mom of mine, right? Seeing that I didn't nod or say anything, she sneered. Do you know why I was so anxious to recognize words so early? She let out a long sigh and then said, because I wanted to read the letter my mom left me earlier. Said Hailey got up and opened the suitcase that she had not yet had time to pack and took out the SpongeBob SquarePants backpack with its faded colors and cotton lint from the inside. Unzipping the zipper, a letter wrapped in a craft envelope was presented in Hailey's hand. It was my mom's suicide note. To be exact, my mom, Hailey's mother, wasn't born an unclean woman. It's just that it's all thanks to your dad. When I heard this, I was shocked. Is the plot of the dog blood going to be set up? Is it possible that Hailey is my half-sister? What are you thinking? I don't have any blood relationship with you. Hailey saw my face pale and guessed my unprofessional speculation at once. The letter kept spinning in her palm, and everything Hailey had on hand when she was thinking was spun up. Sometimes it's a pin, sometimes it's 1,000 paper cranes, and at the moment, it's a yellowed letter. Hailey says, my mom's first blind date was your dad. Your dad and my mom tried dating for a few days at first, and my mom thought it was going well for a while, but suddenly one day your dad told the matchmaker it wasn't working out. She wouldn't say why at first, but then my mom went to him and made a scene. It was only then that he took the initiative to go to the matchmaker to tell him the reason. When your father entered the village, he bumped into my mom who was riding her bicycle back. She looked like a student, pure and innocent, and blushed when she saw people staring at her. She was not the same as my mom, who was a spirited person and dropped out of school early, and your father was attracted to her. Your dad wanted to chase your mom, but then he found out that my mom and your mom were elementary school classmates and had known each other for a long time. So he was especially worried that my mom would say something to your mom that would ruin his good deed. So your father did a superb thing. In order to plug my mom's mouth, the woman he could not see, introduced to a woman she was not familiar with. I'd like to introduce you to a male colleague that she's not familiar with. My mom was angry and agreed to her. It's not just a matter of peace of mind for all of us, it's just a matter of fulfillment for you. But not long after, my mom found that this boyfriend not only in and out of some occasions, and also particularly generous to introduce her to some of the big bosses. My mom does not from the boyfriend on the hands to beat people. One time, he brought one of the bosses to his home and ruined my mom's life by threatening to post nude pictures of her on the bulletin board if she told anyone. Hailey said here, the whole person began to shiver. Eyes looked at me as if covered with a layer of fog. You're not wrong. It's that cousin trash. It's those brown guys who are humiliated. But even if you let my mom know, she can't handle these things. Right now, we don't even have a place to stay. We don't even have a place to stay. So she's going to have to go to her own sister, who provides us with a place to stay, and turn her back on her? Forget it. Don't give her a hard time. Sis will take care of everything for you. Sister. I wanted to call Hailey, but when I saw her red eyes, I suddenly changed my mind. Hailey, as if she was zapped by this sister. A hint of tenderness flowed out of her angry gaze. You actually hate mom too, right? I mean, our mom. Without her, maybe your mom wouldn't have been pushed to that scumbag. I mumbled, like I'd done something wrong. No, it has nothing to do with my mom. Even if there is no my mother, your father will also look at Zhang Manning Wang Manning, but in any case, it will not be Hailey's mother. Also blame Hailey's mother for her own stupidity. But what I hate most is that a man, why can he introduce a scumbag he doesn't really know to a woman he doesn't like? You can dislike her, you can move on, but you can't do such irresponsible shit just because you want a carrot. Your father ruined my mom. Is that what your mom wrote in her suicide note? She didn't blame anyone. She just wrote down a little bit of why she took this step the day I was born. It was probably the best way she could think of to explain everything. Sister, so your mom killed herself because of my dad? Isn't that right? It is. Hailey's mother said, your father one day took a few buddies to KTV to play. To see the fish out of that a sliver of women have Hailey's mother. She in front of those men. She said in front of the face face of those men cheeky. They do not dare to want this. There are shadows. You who love to want who want it, but also reached out to my mom to the arms of those men pushed a hand. The men laughed and said, "This woman is obviously quite handsome, ah. Why not? You do not want a few of us to take turns to fuck it. It seems like an old acquaintance, right? I've seen you in the neighborhood a few times, so it'll be convenient for you to arrange a visit during your wife's lunch break, right? The old acquaintance can do the annual card. At least it should be cheaper." Hailey's mother broke down immediately. She can't stand this. She had thought that the broken cans and then a few years of suffering, but she was not able to get the money to buy a house for her daughter. She was not able to get the money to buy a house for her daughter. She had thought that she would be able to break down and suffer for a few more years, save up all the money for her daughter to buy a house, and then find a place where no one would recognize her and start a new life. In the end, she bought a new house, just lived in it for a month or so, and was touched by a man in the same neighborhood. It's so hard to start over. There are always people with bad intentions to reveal her scars. She does not want her son to live in her dirty shadow. She went back at night and drank until she threw up and her legs got weak, but she still had to drink, and the more she drank, the harder it got. Stuffed everything she could leave for Hailey into that SpongeBob SquarePants backpack she'd given her for Hailey's first birthday. I tore open all the snacks in the house and opened a few bags of buns from the fridge and dumped them on the bed. Then she unplugged the water dispenser. She was afraid that Hailey would be scalded by the boiling water when she was thirsty and had to get some water to drink before finally locking Hailey in her bedroom and going to the living room alone to hang herself. She taught Hailey in her letter not to trust anyone so easily and to always remember to hide a fruit knife under her pillow when she goes to bed. So 10,000 times more uneasy, she finally spilled her guts. Then if you had realized it a few days later, wouldn't you have starved to death? I listened to Hailey's description of the contents of the suicide note, and my whole body was terrified. She'd done all she could, and all that was left was to bet on my mom's inability to do anything. There's no one else in your family? My birth mother was in this business and broke with her family a long time ago. So many years of no contact and no contact. Hailey, why are you suddenly willing to tell me this? Did you read the contents of the suicide note a long time ago? Why did you wait until now to say? Because, forget it, I will tell you later. It is too late. Go to sleep. There are big things to do tomorrow. The next morning, Hailey is no trace. The bed was made without a crease. The quilt folded as if it had never been proffered. I rubbed my head in a daze as I thought back to last night, feeling particularly surreal. From the living room came a sound of high and low climbing. Rocky, you see, cousin was smashed into this ghost. Money spent a lot, but every day told me that dizziness. The key is that if the head left a scar, it will be broken. But the key is to leave a scar on the head. It will be broken. Originally, we are a talented little girl is the voice of the great aunt. I'm not sure if you're a good person, but I'm not a good person. You say this pig-headed baby girl is talented? This should be the worst insult to the word talented. Sister, I really do not have money. Last time the hand of the remaining this money have been transferred to you. I really do not have money in hand. What? My mom gave money back to her family? Are you crazy? She didn't blackmail me for money, but hit me first, and now she has the face to come to the house to ask for money endlessly? I wore slippers and rushed out. After a night of messy arching, my hair became more and more spirited. In the scribbles, I brought a few stubborn spirit of defiance, and with my big sweatshirt and small slippers, it was quite a sadness that I hadn't closed my eyes for 10 days in the war. Dead pig head. Don't fucking daydream, okay? You're a good piglet with a rectum and a brain. Be reasonable, okay? You started it, didn't you? Even if you call the police, it's still an assault. So why are you acting like a victim? Your parents should have spent those 3 minutes walking. Why did they give birth to such a pest? My sister-in-law was stunned. Just the tip of the iceberg of my cursing power was enough to make my sister-in-law so angry that she was floating in the sky. Rocky, you're a kid who's not yet dry yet, and your mouth is so poisonous. How can you get a wife in the future? That's better, so that you won't be like you. A scum marrying a scum and giving birth to such a useless piece of shit. How can you scold my mom? My cousin, who was teasing my goldfish like a dilettante, finally lost her temper and decided to bravely speak up for her mom. My great aunt stood up in exasperation, wagging her finger and howling. You don't have a nest. Your whole family deserve to be abandoned. A bunch of bad luck and uneducated things. Quickly get out of my house. My sister-in-law's face turned green, and she took her baby daughter with her and was about to leave. My cousin, seeing that she couldn't get the money, held up a big thick arm and tried to move towards me again. Fuck, this time and time again. Really think that I shouted to kill so many years practiced in vain, right? I definitely dodge. A big mouth to the girl on the whip. Oops, that palm. That called a hot-ah. My sister-in-law looked stupid, rushed up to tear me. You dare to hit my daughter from childhood to the age of I did not want to touch a finger. You dare to hit her. I tore you a rotten bastard. My mom immediately played her best sweeping leg. She knocked my great-aunt to the ground, and my great-aunt covered her front teeth and cried. You guys, all of you, move out by tomorrow. My great-aunt used her final killer move. My mom was dumbfounded that this woman was going to give in right away, and trembling. She went to pick up the woman she had just put down. No need, move now. Hailey pushed her way in and said this faintly. What are you talking about? Moving so many things to a hotel at once? It'll take 3 to 5 days to re-rent a suitable apartment. I was so shocked by Hailey's serious, deep, and weighty attitude that I almost fell in place. Don't worry, we have a house. Hailey gave me a hand, then slowly walked to my cousin and said with an indifferent face, if you don't want to die, get out now. I looked over at Hailey in bewilderment and was surprised to find that she also had a jade tablet hanging around her neck, strikingly similar to the one around mine. If it wasn't for the fact that the heavy feeling around my neck was still very real, I would have suspected that Hailey had stolen back the jade plaque she had given me. Hailey is really a crazy person. Only one day's work, full payment, bought a well-decorated existing house with a yard. Her real mother left her more than a suicide note. There was a bank card open to Hailey in the beginning of the old days. The suicide note has a password. Hailey's mother's struggle for the fruits of life all in the head. Hailey's mother told her in the suicide note, before the age of 18, do not move this card and do not let anyone know that there is this card. Otherwise, you do not know whether others are really good to you or false good to you. Hailey is extremely good at keeping secrets, and she does it without a drop of water. The salesgirl said sweetly, the procedures cannot be completed so quickly. There is no hurry to pay the full amount. You can first place a reservation. Hailey said, it's not important. Those can take their time. I have to pay the full amount now, but there is a requirement. Give me the key first. I have to live in today. The saleswoman has never seen such a strange and handsome buyer. WeChat voice Daddy Wine hurriedly agreed, in order to thank her for being so quick, but also issued a dinner invitation. Then you are afraid that it is not almost time. Change clothes and hurry to go. I tilted my head while organizing the things in the suitcase while looking at her. Maybe I don't need to go. Hailey responded lightly. What's going on? What's going on? You just changed your date to sleeping together? The atmosphere became weird, as if the whole house smelled a unique odor. Let's make dumplings tonight. No need to buy vinegar. My mom smiled evilly, and her words were full of strangeness. Why? I thought we ran out of vinegar at home. I'm sick in the head, but also stupidly follow up to ask. I really want to smack myself a big mouth. What mom means is, it's a good idea to dip you in the dumplings. Hailey is very smart, really know how to make up for it. I blushed and pushed my mom into the master bedroom of my new house, asking questions in a sneaky way. Mom, you're not really going to turn your back on ethics and morality and sell your son for a house like this, are you? What are you talking about? You're talking nonsense. Hailey is a child I picked up. She's neither your mother nor your father, so she's not abandoning her morals and ethics. Mom, you're not serious, are you? That's a joke. Why do you think I got this big son in the first place? It's because he's pretty, and if he's blind enough to see my baby Rocky, then we'll all be happy. Mom, what if your son is not a daughter? Let's not talk about anything else, but if I do marry Hailey, won't you feel uncomfortable changing your name in the future? What's there to be upset about? You'll have to call me Mom anyway. Cam, my mom glanced at my neck, flirting. The love token has been worn for so many years, you can't just say that you're going to go back on it. The neck of that piece of jade plate suddenly penetrating cold. I hurried to explain. My mom cannot be good blind. This thing is Hailey threatened me to wear. Do not wear to be put in a sack bag. My mom impatiently waved her hand at me. You save it on your stupid lack of like to culture no culture, to brain no brain. Hailey, if you want you that really blind only line. Do you really do not know in ancient times, jade is given to each other as a token of love? You two have dragon and phoenix medallions. You have a dragon. Hailey has a phoenix. On Hailey's first day at home, I gave her this pair that your grandmother gave me. I knew Hailey was blind the day I saw one around your neck. Cam, absolutely. You're my real mom. You're the first one to give it to an outsider when grandma has a treasure to pass down. My mom heard me swearing and slapped me on the back. Don't spit ivory out of a dog's mouth. Who's an outsider? At that time, who knew that I could give birth to such a crazy son who is not worried about you? What you should be worried about is your sister in case she doesn't like you. When I was so angry that my face was twisted into a twisted rope, Hailey's voice came from the living room. Mom, can I borrow your presbyopia glasses? What do you need presbyopias for? There's nothing wrong with your eyes. My mom instinctively disliked it back. I am blind. blind. Ah, Hailey, you. I probed my head and tried to peek into the living room, but I was gripped by Hailey. You hit too hard, right? Go away. Hailey looked up and smiled like an all-right person, and also surprisingly reached out her white, good-looking small hands to hug me. Where to go? I scratched my head and tried to avoid it. I told the salesgirl that I bought a wedding house, but she didn't believe me. She didn't believe me and said that I should bring my wife to eat with me. What do you mean? Hailey smiled and shook her head, came up and pulled my hand to go out. Rocky, bring our mom back to our new home. What are you waiting for? Quickly lead the way. Then Hailey closed her eyes and blindly led me by one hand, and we both opened the door of the wedding room. End of story.